Chapter 37, Demon Lord's Castle 4. We're fighting. There's 2 more gateways after this. What are you planning to do if you give the crystals over to it here? Goddamn it. You don't know about that. Taijin clenched his teeth at Hansu's words. Is he out of his mind? Just say you don't want to if you didn't want to give the crystals. Who in their right state of mind would try to fight that monster? But he couldn't assert his position strongly because he felt like that was the correct choice. Didn't you grind your blade fervently? Then you should at least try swinging it against the strong. Fuck. Hansu, who had finished his wards, started to untie the weapons from his body slowly. Taijin grinded his teeth at this sight. Goddamn it. Is it really doable? He didn't know about other things, but one thing was clear. That Hansu's fighting ability was simply monstrous. And when such a person had told him to try and have a bout with it, he weirdly thought that it might be doable. And he had said he even had psychic powers. I'm the crazy one. He was actually getting tempted by a point with no basis to back it up. Taijin clenched his teeth as he flinched at his weirdly tempted mind. No. I need to be careful of guys like him. When somebody, who was rather good with the sword in the beginning, ambushed him and his friends, they easily suppressed him. Though he was strong, there were still 5 including him and his friends. He had let him go alive because he thought that the speed in which one got stronger couldn't catch up the speed of 5. Since he thought that was the right choice at that time. The greatest misconception was thinking that he would come back alone next time as well. But he did not come back alone. He had brought others behind him. His friends had all died and he barely survived and escaped. And when he awakened his trait and gained more power, he killed them all and then vowed that it was not okay for him to let people who were as dangerous as him alive. Hansu wasn't the problem. Even if he was perfectly normal, it'll be dangerous if he were to go into a dangerous household. Especially in a household where it is composed of a lord symbol which was hard to disobey. One could tell Guktai was dangerous with just a simple glance. That was why he had allied with him, but this decision was something he laid down because he felt that fighting against him was doable. He didn't like that guy, but he didn't mind holding hands with a dangerous and strong guy in order to defend his followers. But if someone like Hansu goes under Guktai and heeds his command, then it will become uncontrollable. He had to do his best to supervise the dangers for the people who receive his mark with trust. While Taijin was pledging to himself within his mind, Hansu rose from his seat. I'll finally get to use this thing properly. Judgment of Decrados, which reached hundreds of meters. The gatekeeper was one of the greatest reasons why he had bought this in the first place. He couldn't control and lead everyone like S. But he could do the thing which he was the best at. I'm fighting in the very front. And the others didn't have the leeway to choose. Let's go. Only people of the Special Forces level and people whose long-range skills reach 250m in range follow. It seems like some of you could do it in combination to your psychic powers. And the healers should be stationed 500m behind. The commander's aura drained the health of the people nearby. They'll just become baggage if they don't have magic resistance. What are you doing? Not coming with me? If you aren't coming, then I'm going to drag that thing over here. This crazy bastard. Everyone was frightened at the sight of Hansu, who seemed like he was about to pounce on it alone. Hansu chuckled as he saw these guys. Follow the commands properly. You need to at least work for your meals. Hansu then charged forward ruthlessly, swung the scythe around and then slammed it down onto the head of the giant gatekeeper. Boom! Kwang! The gatekeeper, which had its head smacked, roared loudly as it glared at Hansu while the fairy muttered quietly. Hey! What is this? They are fighting. Killjoy! Everyone realized the answer from the unsatisfied voice of the fairy. Goddamn it! Run! Receive as many buffs as possible. People who have Aaron's arrow shoot it from over here. And then everyone, as well as the Special Forces, started running towards Hansu's back. As I thought, this guy was created with the gatekeeper of the 7th floor of the abyss as the basis. It was a version which was so weak that it couldn't be compared to the original, but the physical structure of it and the skills it used seemed the same. Then I can read it. Ka-du-du-duk. Kua. The gatekeeper shook his body crazily in order to break apart the chains which were entwining its body. Of course, it was impossible for Hansu to suppress the strength of the giant wolf by himself, since their size and mass were different from the start. It was a different issue from strength. But Hansu was flying between the body and the joints of the gatekeeper as he tied the chain around it, so that when it tried to swing its body, its whole body would be squeezed, so that when it tried to run forward, its front and back legs would get tangled up. Kudududuk. The judgment of Decrados was constantly draining the mana of the gatekeeper as it activated its suppression. It's barely holding on. The gatekeeper wasn't average as he expected. The chains straightened as if they were about to snap. Hansu limited its movements by loosening and entwining the chains. He wanted to tie it up into a ball, but then it might really snap. Hansu loosened and tightened the chains at different times as he tied it up as much as he could without snapping the chains. Its movements weren't suppressed completely because the chains didn't tie it up completely, but its movements were still dulled. Dodge the front leg. The special forces, who were scattering the bones apart below, scattered in all directions while shouting. Boom! Chararuk! As Hansu loosened up the chains, the beast, which was twisting its body in annoyance, swung the now free front leg. But this was all as Hansu planned. He had loosened up the area which was the easiest to dodge on purpose. Kirik. Kiririk. Hansu was changing the direction of the beast even in such a situation by loosening and tightening the chains. Kwang. The gatekeeper got even angrier because it felt like it became a marionette, but Hansu didn't care as he continued to twist around its movements as he pulled on the chains. Well, I can't move it how I want, but... It took all of his power to control the chains, since a gatekeeper of this level was no joke. But such a thing like swinging a sword could be done by others. Kududuk. Kududk. Hurry and smash its ankles first. Since the bones come back to connect with each other, shove some things into the location where you smashed apart. As Hansu heard the endless voices from the clansmen of Taijin, he nodded his head. They're doing pretty good. The demons use a variety of skills. And because the special forces had gained a vast amount of experience, they didn't get flustered at the magical sight of the bones combining back and were neutralizing the ankles first. Ja! And at that moment, a weird shockwave could be felt from the gatekeeper's mouth. And at the same time, the blue eyes in its eyes started to burn up. That's a little bit difficult. If that thing were to burst out, then at least half of them would become a mess. Hellfire. A power that was granted to the doorkeepers in order to incinerate the intruders. Chararek. Hansu grabbed onto the handle of the scythe while flying about on the chains. Kururururu. The scythe in Hansu's hands started to drain his mana aggressively as it activated the skill, Judgment. And Hansu swung it like so and smashed it onto the lower jaw of the gatekeeper. Boom! Quaduduk. His neck bones were so thick that the attack, which he poured all his power into, just bounced off its cranium but still made it to face the front from its original position of being ready. But Hansu didn't expect this attack to send its head flying. His goal was the blue marble that could see seen between the bones he had smashed apart. Ignition Stone. The hellfire could only be let out once the mana from deep inside its body reached up the cranium and met the ignition stone with a violent reaction. An information was obtained after Keldian and Hansu realized that this thing was the gatekeeper on the road to obtaining the demonic jade crystal and had personally killed one and dissected it. Basically, as long as you ripped off the ignition stone, then the hellfire wouldn't get completed. Hansu roughly shoved his hands between the regenerating bones and pulled out the bead. Chiik. An extreme temperature which even made sounds of burning Hansu's flesh, which was protected by his magic resistance. Hansu threw the ignition stone down and then continued to suppress it with the chains with his burnt hand. One of Taijin's clansmen, who was looking at him, asked through the message. He seems like he's having trouble. It feels like it'll work if we attack now. Shall we try attacking him right now? The clan member was making a bitter expression as well. Since the thought of such a guy joining Guktai's clan and holding his blades at them was feeling extremely dangerous. But Hansu was using all his power to suppress the wolf and was having a hard time. A situation where there's a chance if they attacked. But Taijin shook his head. No. Focus on killing the gatekeeper. Yes. The clan member was rather confused at the changed attitude of Taijin but didn't talk back as he charged onto the giant gatekeeper again. And soon the giant wolf started to get disassembled one part at a time from the long-range skills and the special forces who flew into it like a swarm of bees. It was pretty doable, right? Here. Take the runes. Hansu chuckled at the lords as he started to distribute the runes according to the amount of contribution from each lord. Taijin stared at this Hansu for a while and then spoke out. Why do you roam around alone? It doesn't seem like it'll be hard for you to make a clan without psychic powers. That much strength and a weird psychic power. And a weird aura that radiated from his whole body. It wasn't that you needed psychic powers like theirs in order to become a leader. If he's that strong, then he could probably create a much larger clan than theirs. No, even if Hansu was to continue maintaining the semi-basement union and had used his hands a few more times, then they would probably be rolling around beneath him. Hansu chucked at those words. When will he raise them and when will he use them? He needed to run, but if he were to take them with him, then his back will bend. And if he wanted to maintain this amount of people at all times in the place he was going to be at from now on, he'd be simply too busy just to fill the holes. Since they'll die off in hundreds. Everyone has their personal issues. You probably have them too. Taijin stared at Hansu for a while and then looked at Guktai in the distance. This bastard set up a trap. He wasn't somebody who would stay beneath that Guktai. Taijin threw out a word after looking at Hansu for a while. Be careful of that Guktai. He couldn't tell more than that. Since if he were to say that Guktai was aiming for him and created a dispute, everyone would be in danger. Since even if Hansu wanted to do something to Guktai, the other clan lords wouldn't just stand idle. The lords hated Hansu and at the same time, felt pressured by him. They weren't clashing into each other because they agreed of his usefulness, but once he starts acting on Guktai, they will react extremely sensitively. But my mind would only be at ease if I at least tell him about this. Hansu smirked at those words and Taijin glared at Guktai while returning to his clansmen. Guktai clicked his tongue while looking at that Taijin. TSK. So this is how it rolls out. He had been found out, but it didn't matter. Since when was the relationship between them good? And even if he knew, he couldn't do anything about it. How would a guy who valued his clansmen so much fight recklessly? You need to know when to throw things. Hansu was the same. But one thing was clear. It's better to leave him alone for a while. He needed time to practice and it was better to not touch him if he could hunt the gatekeepers like that. Since they could save crystals then. Guktai, who had judged that it was best to leave him alone temporarily, moved back in between his clansmen. Kududuk. Guktai mumbled quietly as he saw the final gatekeeper being eliminated. It's finally here. A giant castle could be seen over the carcass of the final gatekeeper. The Demon Lord's castle, which was only seen in the distance. A ginormous crystal could be seen in the corner of the Demon Lord's castle. Let's see. About 1,000 people left. Guktai looked at his wrist. 8 miniature crystals. It wasn't a large amount because the 12 clan lords had to share, but he could still obtain a pretty good artifact with it. Ain Wilderness Lord's Cape, which could be used once a day to allow the user to summon 12 protectors he chooses, as well as raising the speed of regeneration and movement near the user, and the Thornwood Casket, which surrounds the body of the person whom the user touches with thorns, could increase the battle powers of the clan by a lot. But Guktai shook his head. 12 is too many as I expected. And he is dangerous too. It's time for things to end soon. It was really the final gateway and the final chance. Since we're injured, we're resting here first before moving out. We're going into the Demon Lord's castle after healing as much as possible. Guktai started to send a message toward somewhere as he heard the shouts of the clan lords.